Hello, Augies Worldwide. I'm Dave Kassler, amateur radio call sign KE0OG, here with another episode of Ask Dave. A very interesting question comes from John, KB7LYD. And his problem is that he has trouble explaining ham radio to his spouse and is wondering if I could help a little bit. So here I'm going to try to talk to non-hams who know hams and help them recognize that hams really aren't aliens or something like that, but they are perfectly fine people who just have a very interesting hobby. That hobby can go many different ways. We'll talk about how some of those work. First of all, ham radio is technically a radio service from the federal government. It gives those who get licenses under this the license to talk on the radio to other people. And there are a million different kinds of radios. There are radios that are little handhelds, radios that are great big things like my ICOM radio right here. You can connect them to the computer. You can do all kinds of things with these radios. Some radios can be used to talk around the world. Again, with no infrastructure, there's nothing in between. It's just radio waves bouncing off the sky. And radio hams love the hobby because of the technology involved and of the capabilities involved. There is an element of nostalgia, okay, for the good old days of shortwave from 50 years ago. But there's also an element of the brand new as people try to marry computers and radios together. So your husband may be interested in any of a number of parts of ham radio. He might be interested in the social aspects. Ham radio operators in a given area get together and form clubs, and the clubs sometimes do activities, and sometimes they have meetings with presentations about radio, somehow involved with radio, and so on. So there's the social aspect, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with going along with your husband to one of these club meetings. You'll be welcomed with open arms. And a number of other wives who are hams too will come over and greet you and kind of help you sort through what's going on. And don't be troubled if you don't understand what's given in the presentation, because half the hams there won't either. So it's just a way to have fun. Now, some people like operating modes where you can use the Morse code if you want. Talk about a nostalgia thing, is using the Morse code. It does work. Or your husband may just like to get on the radio and talk to people because it's like a great big giant party line. You never know who you're going to talk to. And so there are a few pieces of information that are exchanged. If the connection is bad, then it'll be very short. Otherwise, it could be a little bit longer. Talking for a fair length of time to a single person is called rag chewing, and it is one of the favorite parts of the hobby for me. Now, possibly your husband or your wife, if she's the ham, likes to take things and make them a little more exciting. Amateur radio is used in public service a lot. If you go to, say, a foot race, like here in Colorado, we have the Imogene Pass Run on the Saturday after Labor Day, and ham radio is used to provide communications between the various way stations. This is a great way to be of public service. Other hams get involved with a local amateur radio emergency service or radio amateur civil emergency service to work with so-called served agencies, which would be a local agency such as the county emergency communications or maybe Red Cross or Salvation Army or something like that. And they can provide a real, genuine humanitarian service in the times of crisis. This is because ham gear can talk to ham gear, whereas various different types of communications used by professionals sometimes cannot. They have what is called an interoperability problem, meaning they can't talk to each other. So hams can act as the go-between for the first 2 or 3 days until the professionals can get everything sorted out and take it from there. Even after that, if it's a large-scale disaster like a hurricane, they'll do something like put in a ham at every evacuation center who can handle health and welfare messages between the various centers and get word out to people outside of the disaster area where communications is okay. So there's something. Now, it's possible, and a lot of hams do this, they'd rather tinker than talk. And so they're tinkering with radios. And if you look over here, I am putting together this old nostalgia radio kit. It uses tubes, and I'm doing point-to-point wiring underneath. And I just got it to the point yesterday where I could test the power supply. And this is, you know, a kit building is a hobby in and of itself. Just building kits, seeing that they work, and then moving on to the next kit. Okay. Now, hams like to get together from time to time for swap fests. These will usually take place early on a Saturday morning. I know our local club does one in June every year. Then there are the hamventions, the ham radio conventions. The biggest hamvention of them all is the one in Dayton, Ohio, which attracts this year it was over 31,000 hams went to that event. These are major trade shows, as well as there's speakers, forums, things like that, and so on. So that may be something that really interests your spouse. Now, other things that go on, you can do some exotic things with bouncing signals off the moon. Yes, hams can do that. Bouncing signals off of very short meteor trails. Meteors are when something from outer space hits the Earth's atmosphere, it leaves a trail, and that trail is called a meteor. And you can bounce signals off of that. Some hams like to work stations in faraway countries. There are awards that can be earned, DXCC being the major one. It means talking to 100 countries, or more technically, 100 entities on the official DXCC list. The United States actually consists of several entities. Continental United States, Alaska, Hawaii, and Puerto Rico are all separate, those three. Three are separate. And then there's the U.S. Virgin Islands and Guam and so on. But talking to other countries is really cool. And ham radio can get a little competitive at times. There are contests on the air where, of course, the rules of the contest vary widely depending on what the interest is. It could be Morse code, it could be voice, and the idea is to talk to as many other stations as you can. What you see here is that ham radio is many hobbies, and you can flit from one to another without any kind of a problem. The license allows you to do it all. Now the question might be, why don't you just use the internet? Well, the internet is designed such that you need to know in advance who it is you want to talk to, and then you send them an email or something like that. You don't have this same effect of meeting new people all the time. So this is one of the things about ham radio that's interesting. You're always meeting new people, interesting people. I can remember a long conversation that I had with someone who was on Walter Cronkite's news crew. And we talked for quite a while, and he told me some very interesting stories. So ham radio is a multiplicity of hobbies. Now, there is an amateur code that has been around for over 100 years that hams are supposed to observe as they moderate their behavior. And one of them is, in fact, just that, moderation in ham radio. A good ham radio operator using best practices will make sure that he is performing his or her duty to the family and not allowing radio to take over their life completely. However, I will tell you, when you're in the middle of a contest, not much else matters. So lots of things can happen in ham radio. It's a whole universe of hobbies, lots of things. So I hope that helps you understand why your husband has gone bonkers and decided to do this and work hard to get the license from the government. It's literally a license to talk. So there you have it. If you followed this video this far, please subscribe, please click like, and until we next meet, 73.